I have another story for you, and it just arose as I was creating the selenite video in the Rainbow Serpent series. So as I've mentioned before, as I'm sharing this crystalline information, it often brings up stories, or stories arise that sort of help me get my point across of through my own personal experience. But often if I was to go into the story, it's a whole segue. And sometimes when a story wants to be told, it needs to have the right space and time to be able to fill in the details, rather than just, I find if I hash over a story quickly, which often I do, and it just doesn't feel good. It feels like it doesn't do justice to all the nuances, the descriptive elements that are really part of good storytelling. So I decided to just create a video as a little segue story into star beings, which is something that I've mentioned when working with selenite. So this story was probably from, I'd say, about 10 years ago. I was at a time when I was studying kinesiology. I was working still within I had my job working in the crystal wholesale place. I think I was also at that time studying liquid crystals, but I don't think I was a practitioner as such. I wasn't necessarily seeing clients. I was just in the learning phase, in the absorbing phase. And I wanted to, I knew that I was on the path of healing, and I wanted to step into a way in which I could work with people and share and support other people on their path. So I was studying this kinesiology in Byron, which was great, and part of that meant I had to have a lot of clients, practice clients. So I had a lot of my friends coming after work, so I'd have a day's work and then they'd come in afterwards. Or so that's just a little preface to my story. So this was just my life. I was just going to work, I was in the healing path, and I was often up late doing my healing training. I believe I was also training in holographic healing as well, energetic clearing and healing. So I had a few different streams of more energetic healing work, but to go to an actual school and learn, and study and have client interactions was really great for me. It sort of gave me a lot of structure. So that was where I was at, and I was living in my house in Kirrabell at the time. So one night I had a dinner with a friend of mine. We went out to the Harvest Cafe. For those of you in the Northern Rivers, was a really beautiful cafe in Nurriba, or a restaurant I should say, and we had a beautiful dinner, and we were just finishing up and in the car park at the front about to say goodbye and go our separate ways. But as we were chatting in our cars, or beside our cars, under the night sky, we both noticed a very bright light in the sky, and we were just like, what is that? But we kept talking and just sort of aware of it. But then, it was like, it's probably an aeroplane. It's that whole thing. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? And it just grew brighter and brighter. And then before we knew it, there were other people in the street that were also standing there looking at this bright light going, that doesn't look like an aeroplane. Is it a helicopter? We were just all like, what is it? And it was hard to really work out what was going. It felt like it was coming closer, getting brighter and brighter and brighter, but then it stopped and it kind of paused for a while, and then it did some weird kind of movement. Like, it was not a usual plane movement. We're like, is it a drone? What could this be? And then it just disappeared. It just vanished, and we were like, whoa, that is definitely not normal. And my friend was like, made a comment that really kind of perturbed me. She said, "Oh my gosh, they always come when my husband's away." And I was like, "What? What do you mean they always come? Who's they? What are you talking about?" And she seemed to be quite sort of panicked, and she looked a bit scared. I was like, "Well, tell me about it. What do you mean?" And she said, "Look, I spent some time living in Brazil, and I can't remember what she was doing there, but she was in a place where there were a lot of UFO sightings, and she had a pretty way out experience. And I can't remember whether she was on some kind of retreat, whether she was like camping somewhere, or what the situation was, but whatever it was, she was actually scared. She had these experiences with these beings that left her quite shaken, and I'm guessing it must have happened multiple times when she's felt alone and had no one to talk to. So she was like, oh my gosh. And her husband was away at the time, so that's why we were out for dinner. And I said, well, if you feel scared, you could come and stay at my house. Like, that's fine. I didn't live far away. And yeah, it was just a weird thing. I mean, I've always been interested in, extraterrestrials and stuff. And I like have no doubt that there is more than just human life out there, but I never really I'd seen lights in the sky, perhaps in various times, shooting stars, all kinds of like satellites, different things that are unexplainable. Like, is it a satellite? Is that a comet? What is that? But nothing really tangible, like there's always that part of the mind that's like, I need to have a real experience to really decide whether I believe if there really is ETs out there. I mean, I do believe it, but I haven't had that experience. So how do I actually know? So I was just more excited about it more than anything, how cool we saw this UFO. That was awesome. And my friend was, worried. So I'm like, come and stay at my house. So we drive through Nuribar, down Friday Hut Road. I think, the driveway home, or the way home back to Kurabel, there was not much street lighting. It's very dark. And she was ahead of me in the car. We're going up Possum Chute, I believe. And I was kind of in a bit of a daydream. I was just cruising along, and I was just imagining, and I just had this vision pop into my mind that we were driving along Friday Hut Road, which we were just coming up to. And then this big spaceship had a beam of light going over the road, and we had to drive directly under this light. And I was just kind of like in a fantasy, I was imagining. And I was like, oh my God, imagine if there was a spaceship. When I said the star disappeared, I'm just remembering now, it didn't just disappear, it kind of just shot off. Like it shot off really fast, but it shot off in the direction of Kurabel, where I lived. And I jokingly said, it's going to my house. Like the spaceship's going to my house. And so that's why I was in this like imaginarium in my head going, imagine if this spaceship just like appeared and we drove under the beam, like that would be crazy. Anyway, drove home, drove along Friday Hut Road, of course no spaceship, and we get to my house and I start making up the spare bed, which is actually just my couch in the main area, and we start, preparing to wind down for the evening. And then my friend was like, oh my God, it's here, the light is back. And we looked out my front porch window, and there was this bright light on the hill. Like, so there's a valley in front of my house, and then a hill where Friday Hut Road, as I mentioned, was running along the top of that ridge line, and there was a bright light on that ridge. Now, I've been living in this place for a really long time. It was like 7 years or something I lived there. And so I know the lights really well. I know how many houses, I know my neighbors, I know who's home, who's not home, whose lights are on, like I can tell. And I had never seen this bright light on that particular area, which was just a paddock. And the interesting thing about Friday Hut Road, I just want to comment on is it is this beautiful road that runs along a ridge, that it is, when you're driving and you come up to Coolum Scenic Drive, it's in direct alignment with our sacred mountain here, Wollumben. And it really has always felt to me like this big spirit highway. Like the road itself is on a ley line that is in direct alignment with this mountain. And I have always had the impulse and the knowing that there's something really special about this place. Not only are there a lot of white horses along the pathway, in the paddocks, and I'd often like pull over, stop and pat the horses and connect with them, because for me the white horse, when you think about Pegasus, or even the correlation is crystalline correlation is apophyllite, which is about astral travel. It's about being into intergalactic travel. Like the horse has that mythological and symbolic kind of like traveling in that other dimensional magical realm, and not only that, is I know various people who live along Friday Hut Road, and all of them just happen to be avid crystal collectors. So there are a lot of crystals all along that road. And my place on Kurabel is just off that road, and my place is full of crystals as well. That's my work. So I have like my place fully gridded and kitted up to the nines with stones. And it's interesting because when I've had house guests, I've had to actually put big blankets over all my crystals, because the frequency is too much for a lot of people. Whereas for me, it feels normal. But for a lot of people, being around that amount of high vibe crystals, it can basically disturb their dream state. So just knowing about the ley line that runs along this road and its alignment with our mountain, the white horses that live along this spirit highway, and all these crystalline dots that are streaming along this path, it feels like there's something about this space, and for this light to just appear there in the exact place where I had in my mind's eye imagined and visualized that there was a spaceship with a giant beam of light that we were going to drive literally through. Now, I didn't see it when we drove past it. However, when we got home and I saw where it was the exact place where I envisioned it. So had I not been with a friend, I would think I was just like making the whole thing up. Because as I said, I've got a fantastic imagination, and sometimes it's hard for me to be able to determine what I actually dreamt, what I received in a vision, what I imagined in a daydream, and what's waking reality. Like the lines are very blurred sometimes, because there is so much information, and like life in our world holds so many keys and codes if you have eyes to see it. There's so much there. So it was a really weird experience. And then my friend was freaking out, but I'm like, no, let's get some chairs, let's sit down and let's commune with this light. Like, let's say it is a UFO. Like, how cool, like it's right there in my backyard. Like, let's commune. So we sat down and we watched this light pulse. It grew big, and then it went down, and it pulsed at us, and we're like, whoa, it's like we could feel this light washing over us. And at one point it dropped the light, and again, I can see with the practical mind what I'm about to describe could be light traveling through mist, because I know when there's moisture in the air, it can fractal into rainbow streams. But I saw this light turn into a star, where it actually like had beams going out the side, beams going up the top, and it dropped this rainbow tail, like a shooting star, but it had like a beam that was like rainbow light just streaming out across the valley. It was white light, but it was like going through the moisture droplets within the air that became a big rainbow tail. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a rainbow bridge. This light is extending a rainbow bridge to us and it wants to communicate with us. So I sat down and we just received the light transmission that was coming from this light, and then beamed back. And when I say beam, it was like a combination of like mental telepathy and heart open radiance. Like it's sort of like like we essentially are stars. We beam and shine as well. So, you know, you can pulse your light. And I was just mirroring the pulsing back to this bright light. And it was a really beautiful, magical experience. It was, yeah, it went on for quite a long time. And then it came to a point where we were getting quite tired. We're like, okay, that's enough now. And then all of a sudden, it just drew its light beams in. And then it went. It was just like, whoa, what just happened there? Did we just imagine that? Was that like some farmer with his tractor light on, or someone's garage and they've got a new globe that happened to be really bright? But like this light is never there normally, and it's really, really bright, like brighter than any car light. So I just really took it as, whoa, we just had full stellar communication. But for me, it, in my mind's eye and in my like sense of perception, it didn't feel like a spaceship. It felt like a light body. It felt like a body of consciousness that to me felt feminine. I felt like a feminine stellar energy. And it was like she's standing there with her arms out, this light beam of her head, and her robe was this rainbow robe. And she was just standing there beaming. And yeah, it was quite an experience. It's hard to explain. So that was that. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I made it, like maybe we ran away with our imagination, but we had this experience. Maybe it was something else. But I left it at that. And then, you know, my friend went home, and then in the following weeks to come, again, as I said, I did my day at work, I came home, and I had different clients coming around, friends that were coming for sessions. So I had my massage table set up. I had all my crystals underneath the table while I was doing kinesiology sessions. And I also, on days that I didn't have physical people coming for me to work on, I was actually doing holographic healing training where I was working on people remotely. So I had my big table bench workspace, and I'd be in meditation, like I'd have my eyes shut, and I'd be consciously working through healing protocols remotely. So this was like my little workstation and what I did every night. And what I found was every single time without fail for the following week, it might have been weeks, I think maybe a period of about 2 weeks, this light would appear. Not a moment before or a moment after, but once a client got on the table and I started working on them, the light would appear. And I'd be like, whoa, there it is. I could feel the rainbow tail coming out, the light bridge. I could feel the stream of consciousness and light moving through me and moving through my client. And I also felt at the times when I was just there studying, learning, practicing, and going through protocols, I felt like I received bodies of information around healing holographically that were not in my notes. It was not something I was studying and it was written. It was like a stream of consciousness that helped me to work with the field, helped me to work with a client holographically. Like I think in some of those sci-fi movies, I'm not sure where I have seen this, but where, you know, they have a hologram just pop up, kind of like that. It was like this I'd have a holographic representation of a person in front of me, and I started working with my hands in the space in front of me, which is a holographic imprint of the client that I was working with. And likewise, when I was working with the person in front of me with their body there, I was working and rewiring their systems, but it was not something that I have learnt in kinesiology. It's not something I had learnt in my holographic healing, although I had the mental framework. You know, I had the study, like I learnt about obviously meridian systems and energy systems and organs and, you know, like emotional pathways, and like I had the infrastructure and the bodies of information, but the way to actually put this information together and to actually work in the field was coming from this star. So it was a really incredible process of learning from stellar light, from this stellar being, from this rainbow field of light. However, after I had this little moment of feeling like really special, but then my mind got the better of me, and I was like, I need to know what happened. Like, was I imagining this? Like, is it just all crazy? So I'm like, that's it. I'm going over to that place. I'm going to go to that neighbor over there, and I'm going to ask them, you know, what they've got going on in their paddock, if they've got any tractors there that have a light, or if they've got, you know, something. And so I went and knocked on all my neighbors' doors going, look, I've been seeing this bright light in your backyard, and I just really need to know, you know. And there are people giving me really weird looks like, no, what are you talking about? There's nothing unusual going on here. But I felt like just even the act of doing that, because my mind was like, I need to know. It kind of took away from the magic of the experience. And that's why I just wanted to kind of reiterate the importance of the imagination and of our perceptive ways we receive reality, because we are all wired differently and we're given imaginations for a reason. And, you know, often I feel the insights we get from these mystical, magical, unexplained places, from these connections with, say, spirit allies or whatever, you know, they're only using the skill set that you've already developed. So you know, like, it's like we're already got our skills within us. We already have our areas of expertise within us, but it's almost like a fine-tunement, or taking all that information and putting it in a way that is an up-leveling in some way. That's how it felt to me. So yeah, I don't share that with everyone, this story, but I just felt too, in the context of working with selenite, which is specifically for connecting with or developing those telepathic communications, specifically with Palladian liquid light technology, which is the liquid crystals that I'm working with. You know, I had that experience, and whatever it was, you know, I've come to peace with not needing to know. And I've also come to the understanding that when consciousness wants to commune with us, it will use whatever earthly faculties necessary. So sometimes consciousness can come into a light bulb and do things to communicate, or come into an animal, or come into, you know, there are different ways, like even just the blades of grass are moving in a certain way. You know, when you see plants, it's like they're little beings talking to you. Like I see these things, and I have wondered, am I a bit crazy? But it's like the world is speaking to us if we have eyes to see and ears to listen and a heart to feel. So yeah, a bit of a magical story of stellar communication. And yeah, I've had other experiences too, but that's sort of been from the point of view a adult, you know, like from someone who's using their rational mind as well as their intuitive healing capacity. I had other experiences as a child that I didn't have the context or that full understanding. That was a bit scary for me, but I've since developed and learned how to keep myself kind of balanced in this 3D reality while being in a really expanded state. So yeah, just wanted to share that with you. So I hope you enjoyed my story.